Good afternoon, everyone. Please stand for the convocation and join me in welcoming Reverend Sharon Codner Walker.
Good afternoon. Thank you once again for extending a special and sacred invitation such as this to stand with you in partnership to shine light on domestic violence, asserting our power because we are powerful, powerful people. Against the intimate partner violence, against physical and sexual, emotional, psychological, and economic violence. It is amazing that we are still where we are in such a time as this, but I am grateful. Sacred text does tell us that love and safeguarding is not found in flowery language. It's not found in rude behaviors. It's not found in those who commit evil against us, those who even profess faith in gift-giving. But that love and safeguarding is manifested in kindness, in love, in patience, in unconditional devotedness to one another, in trusting one another, in believing in one another, and being hopeful always. Pray with me. God of many names, we call upon your presence right now to come and be with us. Oh God, this is a deep emotional time for many of us standing in this room. And oh God, we can't go any further unless your Spirit would come and rest and rule and abide with us. As a source of consolation and hope, we ask that your presence would be felt in this place, that you would be our refuge and our guardian. God, that you would be with those of us who sit and stand before your presence still in pain. We ask, oh God, that you would also be with those who are continuing to suffer abuse and rescue them, oh God, from bitterness and shame and refresh them with love. Heal brokenness, revive spirits. Bless those who will come before us to speak to us. Allow us to hear, God, and allow us to be healed in your presence. It's in your matchless name that I do pray. Amen. You may be seated.
Thank you, Reverend Walker. Greetings again. I'm John Sidorakis, and I'm the Assistant Vice President of Human Resources, and it is my pleasure and honor for the first time to welcome you colleagues, family, and friends to our annual Domestic Violence Awareness event. Notwithstanding the tragedies that we have all faced together with the loss of coworkers and family members, here at the SUNY Downstate Health Sciences University, we forge on towards excellence, and today we stand in solidarity for the victims and survivors of domestic violence. We would like to thank Dr. Wayne Riley, the president of this great institution, for wholeheartedly supporting this sacred awareness initiative. It is important to note that unbeknownst to many of us, domestic violence is a healthcare problem of epidemic proportions. In addition to the immediate trauma caused by the abuse, including depression, alcohol and substance abuse, sexually transmitted diseases such as HIV and AIDS, it often limits the ability of victims to manage chronic illnesses such as hypertension and diabetes. Despite these facts, a critical gap remains in the delivery of health care to battered patients, with many providers discharging a patient with only presenting injuries. Thus, the reason why events such as this one are critical is to raise awareness about the effect of domestic violence and to educate our community. I'm getting emotional just talking about this, thinking and having dealt with victims of domestic violence in the past and during my prior tenure at CUNY for the past 12 years. So please forgive me if you hear the shaking in my voice as I'm getting emotional thinking through all these different incidents, but at the same time being overwhelmed with pride and honor that I'm able to stand here before you on my 4th month in this great institution to advocate and become a member of this great initiative. At this point, I would like to invite Dr. Magda Elianson, the coordinator of EAP and the chair of Domestic Violence Committee. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. I'm very happy to see all of you here today, and everyone is wearing purple. You have a purple ribbon, and this is wonderful. This really warms my heart. SUNY Downstate has been, has been shining a light on domestic violence for quite some time now. Last year, if you could remember, our theme was a message of hope. And some of you, or almost all of you, were able to write a message to victims of sexual assault and or violence. And I had the opportunity to present those posters to a shelter. It was a women's shelter in Brooklyn. And they were very appreciative, and I wanted this year to be able to tell you that they said thank you. Our theme this year is to be an active upstander. How many of you know what upstander means? Raise your hand. Okay, then I'll tell you. So, an upstander is a person who speaks out or acts in support of an individual or cause, particularly someone who intervenes on behalf of something or person being attacked or bullied, right? An upstander takes courage. Now, I'm not saying I want you to be Superwoman or Superman. What I am saying is that I want you to take a stand, right? Take a stand and help those who are victims of assault and violence. Domestic violence can happen to anyone, yet the problem is often overlooked, excused, or denied. This is especially true when the abuse is psychological rather than physical. Emotional abuse is often minimized, and yet it can leave deep and lasting scars. As a coordinator for the EAP program, it is my responsibility to refer individuals who are victims, and or if you do know someone, please call the EAP office, or there's a number of information that's outside that's on the tables. There's an EAP table and an additional table. We have information from victim services and other organizations that deal with domestic violence and or assault. So I invite you to please take some information. We also have an office of diversity and inclusion that also has information and can provide support. Lastly, I wanted to say that every human has the right to be treated with respect. It is our intention today to send the message that domestic violence and abuse is unacceptable. By breaking through these shields of silence, we hope that those being victimized in domestic violence relationships will begin to come forward. On behalf of myself and the Domestic Violence Committee, I want to thank you all for being here today and showing support. And I hope that all of you will continue to be an active upstander. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to invite Ms. Judith Dorsey to the stage. She is the Vice President for Human Resources and Campus Ethics Officer and the member for the Domestic Violence Awareness Committee.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would be remiss if I don't acknowledge my coworkers and team members, first and foremost Magda, as well as Nicole Sharp, who are just fabulous to work with, and they are such great advocates and supporters of this domestic violence program, initiative, whatever we want to call it, but it's very much a part of our society, and they do a great job, so I want to acknowledge them. Thank you. And my new member, John, too, so anyway, okay. So here we go. At this point, I'd just like to highlight some of the myths and facts about domestic violence. And if these are familiar to you, shake your head or, just listen to what we have to say here, and it'll sort of, I think, jog our memories. Myth: domestic violence is a private family matter. Domestic violence is everybody's business. Keeping domestic violence secret helps no one, has been shown to harm children, incurs substantial costs to society, and serves to perpetuate abuse through learned patterns of behavior. Okay. Myth: most of the time, domestic violence is not really that serious. Fact: domestic violence is an illegal act in the United States and is considered a crime with serious repercussions. Although there are aspects of domestic violence, example, emotional, physical, psychological, spiritual abuse, that may not be considered criminal in a legal sense, serious and long-lasting physical, emotional, and spiritual harm can and often does occur. Each and every act of domestic violence needs to be taken seriously. Myth: victims provoke their partner's violence. Fact: whatever problems exist in a relationship, the use of violence is never justifiable or acceptable. There is no excuse for domestic violence. Myth: no one would beat their pregnant wife or girlfriend. Fact: domestic violence may begin or escalate during pregnancy. Homicide is the single most frequent cause of maternal death during pregnancy and in the first year after giving birth. Myth: women are just as violent as men in relationships. Fact: some women report striking their male partners during the course of conflict, often in self-defense. Women, however, rarely commit deliberate acts that result in fear, injury, rape, or death. Myth: domestic violence is bad, but it happens elsewhere. It doesn't happen in my community, my neighborhood, my culture, my religion, or my congregation. Fact: domestic violence happens to people everywhere. Educational and social economic level, domestic violence happens in all races, religions, and age groups. Domestic violence occurs in both heterosexual and same-sex relationships. Myth: it's easy for a victim to leave her abuser. So if she doesn't leave, it means she likes the abuser or is exaggerating how bad it is. Fact: fear, lack of safe options, and inability to survive economically prevent many women from leaving abusive relationships. Threats of harm, including death to the victim and/or children, keep many battered women trapped in abusive situations. The most dangerous time for a battered woman is when she attempts to leave the relationship or when the abuser discovers that she has made plans to leave. Myth: children are generally neither aware of nor affected by their mother's abuse. Fact: nearly 90% of children who live in homes in which there is domestic violence will see or hear abuse. Children as young as toddlers can suffer from the effects of exposure to abuse. Children exposed to violence and other forms of trauma may have permanent alterations in brain structure, chemistry, and function. Myth: domestic violence is an impulse, control, or anger management problem. Fact: abusers act deliberately and with forethought. Abusers choose whom to abuse. For example, an abuser will selectively batter their spouse, but not their boss. Myth: services for victims are staffed by people angry at traditional society who want to break up the family unit. Fact: programs that help battered women and their children and counselors who provide assistance are concerned first and foremost with the safety of the survivor and their dependent children. The goal of counseling and other survivor services is not to break up the family unit, but to preserve the safety of all its members. Achieving this goal, unfortunately, may mean that some relationships may need to end. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Dorsey. Our next speaker is the Project Director of Sexual and Interpersonal Violence Prevention at the State University of New York. Her professional background is in violence prevention education, victim advocacy, and peer education development of college campuses. She has developed and implemented several programming and educational initiatives for college-aged students, including a men's initiative focusing on engaging men in the efforts to end sexual and interpersonal violence, and an affirmative consent campaign. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Elizabeth Brady.
My name is Elizabeth Brady, and I'm so thankful to be here today. This has been a really just wonderful day from start to now, and hopefully to finish. And I did want to thank you all for inviting me, and also congratulate SUNY Downstate for completing the largest number of amenity kits in the shortest amount of time today. Many of your colleagues, some of you are here, got together and put together 500 amenity kits that will be delivered to local rape crisis programs and domestic violence shelters in a little under 47 minutes. So can we give you a round of applause? I have the privilege of overseeing the SUNY's Got Your Back program. SUNY's Got Your Back started in 2016 with the goal of assembling 2016 comfort bags in the year 2016. Its initial name was actually 2016 and 2016. Within 24 hours, SUNY campuses, being ever so uncooperative, had pledged more than 5,000 bags by the very next day. So we realized that this was going to be a little bit bigger than we had originally planned, and also that we needed a new name. So SUNY's Got Your Back was born. We then partnered a few years later with the New York State Office of Victim Services, where there is some information here about today, to expand the program from doing a few thousand bags a year to up to 100,000 bags each year that go to local rape crisis programs, domestic violence shelters, and hospitals all across the state of New York. These bags contain personal items like shampoo, conditioner, body wash, lotion, toothpaste, toothbrush, a stress ball, a super plush towel, all things that someone may need when they are seeking services and showing up with nothing more than the clothing on their back. We also include a handwritten message of support, which we have been told is the most meaningful piece of it, because it shows that someone within their community, who they will likely never meet or get the chance to thank, took time out of their day to put together that bag for them. And that is really what brings it all together, is that sense of community, and something that I've seen really prominently here today. Just an incredibly welcoming community, and I just think this is such a wonderful initiative, so thank you again. I wanted to touch on, since we're talking about being an upstander and shining the light, the idea of sort of arming yourself with resources for folks, and shining the light on the resources that are available for folks when an incident of violence does occur or someone is experiencing domestic violence. I think it is so wonderful that your EAP program is so prominent. I can tell you that not all campuses and not all organizations are like that, so the fact that you're so front and center and allowing folks to know that these resources are available is a really, really wonderful thing. And the New York State Office of Victim Services had been mentioned a little bit earlier, which I'm sure that your EAP program is very knowledgeable about, but I joke sometimes that I'm like their guerrilla marketer or promoter. I promise I make no kickbacks from talking about them. I'm just, I think they're a little bit of an unsung hero across the state of New York. Prior to working with them, despite the fact that I'd been in government for a little bit, I did not know that they could actually provide reimbursement to someone if their phone was smashed in a domestic violence incident. I did not know that they were responsible for covering the cost of sexual assault forensic exams. I did not know that they would pay lifetime costs of incurred expenses as a result of being a victim of crime. So if you can do one thing, let the people in your lives know that this office exists, because they are just able to provide a tremendous number of resources, and they have. We're very thankful that they've helped us to expand the SUNY's Got Your Back program. With that, do you need me to? Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Brady. At this point, I have the pleasure to invite an employee of the Office of Human Resources, Ms. Nicole Sharp. She's a survivor and an advocate for the Domestic Violence Awareness Committee. She has been instrumental in spearheading and helping set up alongside and under the direction of Magda Aliansen. So I would like to invite Nicole so she can give us a brief synopsis of her story. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'll be very brief. Once again, I'm Nicole Sharp. I'm an advocate for domestic violence awareness. I'm the founder of the Heather Hurley Foundation for the Prevention of Domestic Violence. It's a nonprofit that's working to get into New York City high schools to teach about teen dating violence, sexual assault, and domestic violence, because we believe that prevention is better than cure. It's much harder when a person ends up in a violent situation. It's much easier to prevent it. So we believe that educating children is going to make a world of a difference with the face of domestic violence in New York City and abroad. So we're really happy that this initiative, which started about 10 years ago here at Downstate, has bloomed into something so great, and we're so happy that all of you are part of this. And I really want everyone to just give yourselves an applause, because you represent all the people who couldn't make it out today. Domestic violence affects 1 in 4 women and 1 in 5 men, and these are the reported cases. But I do believe that domestic violence, I can go out there and say domestic violence affects everyone. Everyone knows someone or has experienced some sort of domestic violence, knowingly and unknowingly. I started my nonprofit because I lost my mother to domestic violence. My father murdered my mom when I was 15 years old in our home after many, many years of abuse. And it was so tremendous that my first memories are of witnessing abuse. And no child wants to look back at your early memories, and it's just being engulfed, with pictures of abuse. So as I got older, ended up in foster care, ended up with my own family, who didn't really treat myself or my 2 siblings well. We were like burdens to them. But as we got older, we learned to stand up and fight for our own selves. Our faith in God is what really catapulted us to allow us to let our lives to flourish. We didn't die with our parents. So that's why I wanted to use my mother's example to help others to get out of relationships or even avoid violent relationships, and even for abusers to look at themselves, because a lot of times people just do what they learn. It's not an excuse, but when you look at yourself in the mirror, you're forced to look at yourself in the mirror, you could actually make changes. So that's why I'm happy that Downstate is part of such a campaign that many people used to be afraid to be a part of, but I find now that more people are coming forward and not afraid to say they're standing up in solidarity for the victims and survivors of domestic violence. So I just want to thank you guys again, and enjoy the rest of our great program.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you very much. Our next guest speaker is a lifelong Brooklyn resident, the daughter of immigrants, a committed public servant, and a fearless leader. She's serving the 43rd Assembly District in Brooklyn, New York, which encompasses Crown Heights, Prospect, Lefferts Gardens, Wingate, and East Flatbush. Her legislative agenda focuses on civic engagement, education equity, permanent and affordable housing, small business enhancement, criminal justice reform, anti-gun violence initiatives, community empowerment, and development. Without further ado, I would like to invite the Honorable Diana Richardson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, y'all a little dead. Good afternoon, everyone. Now that's what I'm talking about. Yes, as stated, I'm Assemblywoman Diana Richardson, and I thank SUNY Downstate and everyone who put together this event today for inviting me here to come and share a piece of my story with you about my experience with domestic violence. You know, as you were reading my bio, I said, It's everything that's not written in between the lines that really is the story of what has gotten me here today. I'm a proud survivor of domestic violence. I want to say about this time in my life, I'm about 20 years removed from the particular situation, but it is something that has stayed with me, and I'm happy that I'm able to share this story with you today. As I came in and I was sitting down, tears literally started coming from my eyes, more because we talk about the happy parts of our lives. I don't usually share this part of my story, but I'm happy that I can be vulnerable in this space, and I just encourage you to keep encouraging me as I'm standing up here, because thank you, because it's really not easy. I got involved in a relationship some time ago, and to be honest with you, as I could look back with my knowledgeable eyes now, there were so many red flags that were glaring in my face. And it happened fairly quickly. I was slapped, I was kicked, I was punched. My mouth has always been this strong. I've been very opinionated. I have a lot to say. And it was a way to try to downstrife me and keep me in check, period. One hit, I said, okay, maybe he just has some issues. I'm hoping that he can change. No, honey, he hit me again. He hit me again. He hit me again. I've been choked out, black eyes, I've blacked out, I've had to go to the hospital. I smile before you today, but my teeth are fake. They were busted out. I had my child used against me. In all of that, I still loved him. And I was hoping that with my love, it would change him. So I stayed, and I prayed. But we know prayer without action does not equate to change. He was slick with it. I was living here in New York. He convinced me that we should go to West Virginia to start a new life. I moved 17 hours away from my friends, my family, and essentially my support system. I thought a new environment would be a new lease on life for us to start a life together. No, a new environment meant that he had me isolated, and he was able to take further advantage of me. I'm the person, I love to work. I'm a worker bee, so I had a job while we were there in West Virginia. He did not. Not only was I physically abused, I was financially abused. He showed up no other day but payday to take all of my money. And I still went to work every day because I felt that if I didn't, there would be some problems in the home. Before I knew it, and I know better, and I'm just going to say to you plain and simple, I know better. I shouldn't have been having sexual intercourse without a condom, but I was doing it anyway because I was afraid to speak up for my own rights and my own health. 3 months later, I was pregnant. Even more stuck. Now I have a life that's growing inside of me that's dependent on me to thrive, and I'm 17 hours away from home. I just kept going through the cycles and emotion. I thought, I'm pregnant now. He wouldn't hit me. Oh, baby, I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong. I was abused throughout my entire pregnancy to the point that I don't have any other child but that one child because I've been so traumatic, so traumatized. I fear being pregnant because I just feel that it's such a vulnerable state for a woman. I don't have any other children. Pray for me on that one. So here I am pregnant in West Virginia, and I'm working for the Embassy Suites Hotel. And I can tell you that all of the people who work with me, they could see the signs of what was going on. So I say to all of you guys who are here today, if you see anything going on with any of your colleagues, begin to keep a journal about it. Because I've seen cases where it was the journal of the colleague who was able to chronologically see the days that the friend came into the office not looking too well, that it was able to be supportive evidence for the woman in her case. Everybody knew about it, but they were afraid of him too. How? Because he would come up to the job doing acts. You know how this goes, right? They terrorize you in every space so you feel safe nowhere. So here I am now, trying to have a conversation with him in our home one day about the fact that he needs to stop hitting me because I'm getting bigger. And, you know, I found out that this time I was having a son, and I didn't want my son to grow up in a household watching a father beat his mother. And I was talking to him about the signs of trauma in his life and that he needed to go and get help. And of course, no one wants you to hold a mirror up to their face to talk about what they need to improve in their lives, and that resulted in a severe beating for me. 2 weeks later was my baby shower, and I had a black eye at my baby shower. I can remember getting hit for stupid things like not answering the door fast enough, small things. It really had to do about his anger, his aggression, his unsolved childhood traumas and things that were now being projected on me, right? So I'm saying that in a moment to say it's really not about you or anything that you have ever done. And we as women sometimes put that blame on ourselves. If I just didn't speak to him in that tone, if I would have just said it a little differently. The truth is, it doesn't matter how you say it and what you do. It is not about you. It's really about the individual who is abusing you and them having unresolved issues that they need to work out. And there's no matter what you do, no matter how much you pray, no matter how long you stay, nothing will change until they want to change. Before I know it, next thing you know, I'm due in 2 days. And I can't believe I can actually remember that. I was due 2 days before was my due date. And some incident resolved again. Can you imagine how big my stomach was for being due in 2 days? And he was still beating on me at that time. When I went into labor, I thank God for the nurses in the hospital because they recognized it right away. When I went into labor, they could tell by just the way that I was interacting with him and how he was dealing with me. One of the nurses came to me and she whispered in my ear, and I'll never forget it. She said, "Do you want him to be in here with you?" And all I could go, I was in so much pain, I said, "Mm-mm." She said, "Okay, I'm going to deal with it." And she removed him from the room. And trust me, it was not easy, but she did it. And I thank her so much in this moment. She probably would never know how grateful I am, but she removed him from the room. And it was so helpful to me because imagine being in labor with an abuser standing next to you. I stayed dilated at 3 centimeters for 15 hours. In the minute that she removed him from the room, I went from 3 to 10 in less than 1 hour. That's to show you the stress that was on my body by just his presence being in the room. So that was a big melee in the hospital, but thank God she did it for me. The doctors came in and they were asking me, because of course the signs were there and it was so apparent, what do I want to do? How am I going to do it? But of course I still defended him. Of course I just stood up for him. Really, I should have been standing up for myself and my child, but I did it. And they were trying to work out safety plans for me, but I decided to just get discharged and go home because I didn't want there to be, you know, a big melee, and I was in a whole nother state, again, unsupported, without people being around me. So my sister comes to see me. I'm her baby sister, and I just had a new baby. And I wasn't really communicating with my family 100% about what was going on because I knew if they knew, they was not going to go for that. So mind you, I was actually keeping this secret of what was happening to me away from the people who I know could have came and helped me. But I was so afraid. When my sister got there and she saw what was going on, she waited for him to go to work one day because he finally got a job. Y'all laughing. It's true though. And she said, "Sis, what are we going to do?" I said, "I don't know. You know, I felt so stuck. I felt so stuck." You hear that word? I felt so stuck. And the truth is, when I look back on the situation, I had so many options. But my perspective was so jaded by the trauma that I was going through at the time, I didn't know what to do. Now, mind you, I'm standing here before you today as the New York State Assemblywoman for this community. Think about this. Wait. Thank you. I mention that only to say, look at who I am today, but look at where I'm telling you the state of my mind was just a few years ago. This is why I know it's so important that we are not judgmental of people. and that we continue to have second chances in our hearts, you know, and not just judge people for where they're at, because truly then I couldn't see anything that I can see right now. I really couldn't. I felt so stuck. My sister said, we have to do something, we have to get out of here. Thank God she had a friend who had a house in Ohio, and we were able to, I had to wait until my son got his 6-week shots, and literally, as he got the shots, we kind of pre-packed the house without him knowing that we pre-packed the house. We made things look like they were normal, but they were really ready to go. We made sure, here's an important thing for anybody who's going through abuse, keep your vital documents in one central place. I had my vital documents in a central place. I had the baby's things in a central place, my things in a central place. As soon as we went to that doctor's appointment, we beelined it straight to the Greyhound. Thank God. And we called the police department ahead of time to let them know that we were going so they could provide us safety in order for us to get on the bus. I went to Ohio, and I stayed there for about, let me say, 2 to 3 months. And y'all are gonna die about this one. You ready? I called him. Yes, I did. I called him. You know, at that time, I kept saying to myself, you know, I didn't grow up with my father. And for any of us who hasn't grown up with one of our parents, you kind of don't want your children to go through that same experience. It was almost like I was trying so hard for my son not to have that void in his life that I had, that I was willing to do anything, even sacrifice myself for it. Come on. It didn't make sense, but it made sense to me then. I called him. And so, you know, I let him know where we were, and I said, come on, we have to try to do this and figure it out, you know. And then I wound up moving from Ohio to New York. And guess who helped me to do it? He did. Yep. And then when I got here to New York, and I took over the apartment that I'm in now, which was our family apartment, I thought, okay, now we're in New York. The baby's here now. We've gone through a lot, but we can make it as a family. Yeah, until I told him what we could and could not be doing here in my childhood apartment. Next thing you know, there he was beating me again. Can you imagine? In the house that I grew up in, where I potty trained, learned to walk, where the house where my mother brought me back from the hospital when she had me, I was being abused in that home. I said, this can happen. The minute I told him that he had to go, he tried to steal the baby. He tried to steal the baby out the house, running down President Street towards New York Avenue, and here I went running behind him, and thank God the NYPD officers were standing right there in the corner. I started shouting out to them for help. Thank God they were there. Thank God they were there. And then, you know, just to speed this up, you know, it was so hard to get my life back on track, but the truth is, you could do it. I decided that I was going to prioritize myself, and instead of trying to bring an abusive man into my life in order to make a family, it was just going to be me and my son, and we were going to be a family. And I thank God for Medgar Evers College because I enrolled myself there. And when I got there, I wasn't just a number. I was a person, I was a name, and they loved me, and they saw the trauma in my life, and the individuals at that institution worked with me and helped me to see my own self-esteem, my own self-worth, and my own self-value. See, I'm beautiful, and I know that. You tell me today, somebody tried to tell me anything today, I know I'm beautiful, but my self-esteem was so low. And if you would have asked me if my self-esteem was low, I would have told you that my self-esteem wasn't low. But the truth is that my self-esteem was very low. You know, I grew up in a time where colorism was really big. We're talking about it now, but colorism was really big. I'm not light-skinned. I don't have long hair, so I felt like I was chopped liver. I almost felt like I deserved to have hurt and pain and trauma in my life, that I wasn't worth it. But that's not the truth. It was really about my self-esteem, because when your self-esteem is to a certain level, you're just not going to tolerate certain things. And I found myself, I found my identity, and I found my self-esteem at Medgar Evers College. And as I started to serve the students in student leadership, that is when it was almost like a ministry for me in service. And then I was able to, get through with my son through the help of so many people, whether it was that college campus and family and the students there. They really helped me so much. Now, that doesn't mean this man went away. I want to say thank you to Safe Horizons and to the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office because they really work tremendously with me, but he kept popping up. He kept popping up. And it's so crazy that I'm here to do this talk today. Y'all ready for this one? He popped up today. He literally popped up today. Guess what? I got a call from my son's school that he went to the school today. For what? For what? We haven't seen him. We haven't seen him. So to me, he just wants to be relevant, right? And now it's like almost he's trying to do a different type of abuse. He knows I'm a public figure. So he knows that anything with my name, of course, will be in the newspaper in 5 minutes. So it's like a different type of trauma, a different type of abuse. But guess what? He doesn't understand. I know who I am now, baby. That's not going to work. It's not going to work. And we will just continue to tell the story and the truth. And once people hear about who you are and what you're doing, it's going to be a negative light shine on you. But I say this to any woman that's listening, it's not going to be a 1, 2, 3 type of thing. It's not. And you're going to have to, number one, do some work on yourself and get your priorities in alignment. I know that's so much easier said than done. Secondly, I will say that there is support around you. You may feel so alone. You may feel like no one understands. You may feel like no one knows. Do not let shame and pride take your life from you. That was it. I was too prideful and I was so ashamed. Don't let it happen to you. Number 3, even if it is one day at a time, one step at a time, start making your exit plan. Start making your exit plan. Number 1, keep the vital documents. Number 2, if you have to get a P.O. box to get mail sent to you, do that, because I had to get a P.O. box. Number 3, if you have to open up a separate bank account and start saving money little by little so they don't know that you're saving money, do what you have to do, but you have to start making the exit plan. And number 4, be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. Because we will tell ourselves a lot of different things to try to justify wrong and make wrong right. You have to be honest with yourself and be honest with your family. Notice I said there were people in my life who I knew would help me, but I was hiding it from them because I knew that they wouldn't tolerate that, and I don't know why I was even going for it anyway. So let us all be upstanders. Let us all be upstanders. And if we see anything that's going on with somebody, here's another thing about abuse and domestic violence. Don't get upset if the person doesn't answer your call the first time you try to give them aid. Because you'll say, oh, I tried to help her, but she doesn't want help. Oh, I tried to help him, but he doesn't want help. So then you might say, oh, well, I'm not going to help them. No, just keep saying, when you're ready. When you're ready, I'm here. When you're ready, I'm here. When you're ready, I'm here. And I see you. And they have to know that you see them. I see you, and when you're ready, I'm here. So if there's anyone in the audience, if you know anyone, please send them my way. I'm willing to do the work to help deliver somebody from a situation that other people helped me. And I thank you guys for listening. I don't know if I was all over, but in my mind, it sounded like it was cohesive. I appreciate you guys. God bless.
Domestic violence affects every neighborhood, every community.
Last year, the NYPD responded to an average of 770 domestic violence incidents every day.
You are the greatest tool we have to end domestic abuse.
We want every New Yorker to ask,
what can I do to help?
Instead of being a bystander to domestic violence in our city,
we need everyone to become an upstander.
Because everyone plays a role in preventing domestic violence.
I am an upstander.
It is my business when I hear abuse next door.
An upstander does not stand for people making light of domestic violence.
An upstander talks to their friends and family
about the relationship they deserve. Every woman, man, and child has the right to be free of violence and intimidation in their home.
Awareness.
Help.
Hope.
So to the Honorable Diana Richardson's point, what doesn't kill you, not only does it make you stronger, but it makes you beautiful. So I want to say to everyone that you are all beautiful. We're all beautiful. And in closing, I'd like to thank our invited guests once again, the Honorable Diana Richardson, Ms. Elizabeth Brady, Dr. Magda Aliansen, Ms. Nicole Sharp, and the entire Domestic Violence Awareness Committee, Vice President Judith Dorsey, and the Department of Human Resources, co-sponsor John Conley, Division of Medical Ethics and Humanities, Biomedical Communications, for spreading the word and bringing you all here. Partnering organizations, FMND, Cafe One, Classroom Services, all the volunteers who were so gracious enough to provide their help with packing the comfort bags and assisting with today's presentations. So I don't want to hold you up any longer. Reception will follow. Thank you all so much for making this a great event. And once again, it was my pleasure and honor to be your host today. Thank you very much.